Hey everyone, Mandy Ray of Ecstatic Astrology here to give you the forecast for the next couple of weeks and talk about new moon in Cancer. So this happens tomorrow just before 10 Central US time, and a new moon is always a time of starting new cycles, planting seeds, especially in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So when we have a new moon in Cancer, it is a fresh start for our souls, for the emotions we feel, for the topic of security, emotional security, how we nurture ourselves. Cancer and the moon both represent mother. So it's interesting that this Supreme Court decision came down as, just after the sun ingress Cancer. And here we are at a new moon in Cancer. And this is when we start things, right? At least for the next month. I like to do the 6-month thing. So it's going to be a new moon in Cancer right now, and then in 6 months we'll have a full moon in Cancer. And so I like to look at these cycles in that way. We're not only setting intentions for the next month, but also for the next 6 months, really. So this new moon is at 7 degrees of Cancer, exactly square to Jupiter. Jupiter is truth, expansion, and it rules education. And in Aries, which is where it's at, is pushing us forward somewhere. We are really going after something. We're trying to get our desires met. Our willpower is strong. Clarity is a lot easier to come by with Jupiter and Aries. And also at the same time of this new moon, Neptune is stationing retrograde. So Neptune is the planet of inspiration, escapism. It can be disillusionment and delusion, illusion, secrets. It's direct for about 7 months of the year and then retrograde for about 5 months. So it's stationing on the day of this new moon. And what stationing means is that it's standing still. And a lot of times when a planet stands still, it's like it's got more power. I mean, think of how well you can think when you're walking and trying to do things versus when you're just standing still. So that is the concept of a station and how it can make a planet's influence greater. So things may seem a little unclear right now, but we're getting a chance to revisit places that we might have deluded ourselves during this Neptune retrograde, especially around the moment of its station. So I believe this new moon sets off a truth and clarity movement in our lives, especially with the new moon being square to Jupiter. Squares are tension. They create action. We have to make a move. So let me go through these rising signs for you guys before I go into the rest of the week and tell you where Cancer and Jupiter are for you. I'm going to share the chart. It's been shared with me that people really like to see the chart when I'm doing the rising sign. So I will do that. Okay, here we go. Here is the chart. The new moon is going to be at 7 degrees. I don't have it pulled up exactly here, but you will see if you follow that Cancer glyph around, you'll see the sun and the moon there. And that is the new moon when the sun and moon come together. And also here is the square to Jupiter right there. So let's start with Aries risings. And if you don't know your rising sign, you can do this for your sun sign or moon sign as well. It works really well with the rising sign, I will say that. So if you don't know that, you can either email me or go to astro.com and pull it up for yourself and find out your rising sign. It determines a whole lot about what themes are in your life, especially when in regards to the signs on the houses. So now that I've done that spiel, Aries risings. This is very indicative of how you balance your need for emotional security versus your need to push forward in your identity and be seen. Do you take care of yourself or do you take care of your family, kind of a thing? Do you feel and emote, or do you just push forward and be individualistic? So do you belong? Do you feel like you belong at home? This new moon is in your area of home and family. And so you're really learning to have some self-care there, to take care of your family, to make your home a place that feels good. At the same time, Jupiter is pushing you out with the Jupiter in the first house. That's myself, my identity. So you're trying to find out who you are and take care of yourself and be very individual, go at it on your own. But the new moon in Cancer suggests that you may need to spend some time with the people you love, some time on your own emotions and your own emotional security, and make sure you're checking in with yourself. Emotions need to flow. And that's the beauty of Cancer, is that it's a cardinal water sign, like a flowing river. So movement will be very good for you during this time. And I think that if you check in with your emotions, it might reveal a little more about the truth of who you want to be in the world, right? And also with your family. How do the people in your home and in your life see you? Do they see the truth of who you are? That's Cancer rising, Aries rising. So for this new moon, you can set an intention for a greater sense of emotional security in order to be yourself, and also to be yourself in your family life, in your home life, and have the two reflect one another. Taurus rising. This new moon is in your third house of decision-making, communication. Local community is another third house topic. Short trips, right? Basically, what I would ask is, are you nourishing your mind here? Are you checking in and making sure your heart and mind are connected? Jupiter in Aries is in your 12th house. This is very abstract. So you're on a very spiritual quest, and the new moon in Cancer is like, don't forget to actually think about the details and take in more data, learn, listen, and also nurture that part of yourself, the part of yourself that communicates, that has to think, that may be involved in local community aspects or being busy. That's really a third house topic. So as much as Jupiter in Aries may want you to escape, want you to retreat, want you to check out, or maybe zone out, that's a very 12th house topic. Dreams. You are encouraged to cultivate your mental processes during this time and how you communicate what you're going through. So intentions for clear communication, for clear decision making, all of that will be very good intentions to set. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I feel like if there has been spiritual quest, or maybe lack of understanding of what's going on in your life, or feeling like you just want to get out of it all, the new moon in Cancer is like, you have to come back into reality for a minute and make sure you are nourishing your connections to people as well. And yeah, maybe writing is a good thing, journaling for you during this new moon in Cancer. All right, Gemini risings. This new moon is in your second house of finances and self-worth. So you are encouraged to have some self-care here. Maybe think about your own sense of worth and security, and tune into the emotions around that. Jupiter is in your 11th house of large groups of people, goals for your future. And that's where you've been pushing forward. What are my goals? What is my future? I need to network, yada, yada, yada. It's not just Jupiter there, it's Mars. And this goes for everyone. I mean, there's so much energy in Aries pushing us forward. But the new moon in Cancer is like, you need to come back and take some time, maybe do what's comfortable for you, check in with your finances, check in with your values. What do I value? I need to come back to myself and nurture that. Self-care is very important. Burnout could be a thing for you, especially if you're looking at your finances. You've been pushing on the networking and the goals, and that's all fine and dandy, but also come back and look at your values and finances and go, let me spend some time looking at this, nurturing this, before I push forward anymore. We have to get this in order. What are my values? That will inform how you network. That will inform your goals. So yeah, nurturing those values, getting really clear on where you stand in that realm, especially like, does money mean everything to you, or is it time? I mean, that's a good question for the new moon in Cancer in the second house. What is valuable to you? That's what you should be nurturing, and let that inform the way you push towards your goals. Okay, Cancer rising. This new moon is in your first house of identity and self-care for Cancer risings. Jupiter in Aries is in your 10th house of career, public reputation. And so there has been a huge push there maybe even uncomfortably so. I feel like Cancer risings have that shell, that crab, they want to go into their little crab hole. And I am a Cancer rising, so I get it. And it's just like, leave me alone, especially with Mercury and Venus here in your 12th house. Like, I want to get away. But Jupiter in the 10th house has really pulled you out of that shell. The new moon in Cancer is like, okay, how can you get the time to be yourself, to nurture your identity, to nurture your individualism, who you are as a person before or as you push forward in career? It's really about nurturing your identity and bringing that out into the world. So, especially if you've tried to put off notions that you are different than you are in order to succeed, maybe during this new moon, you come back into yourself and you go, I really need to nurture who I am and show that to the world, even as I'm pushing forward in career. Those two things, may be about balancing your need for self-care versus the push towards recognition and towards career successes and career goals. This is about, are you secure and happy and safe just as you are? This is who you are. This is an identity new moon for you. So you are definitely setting intentions here. Maybe it is to be more true to yourself. That would make sense with it square to Jupiter, which is truth. Just remember, if you're going to push forward out into the world with this Jupiter in Aries, you have to bring you and your own emotional nature into it. You cannot deny those things, So if you're trying to be the hardened career success person, it's going to lead to burnout if you're not honoring your own needs and your own truth, your own emotions. It's okay if you cry. For instance, I've cried on video several times, right? I'm a Cancer rising is what we do. That's something I won't deny about myself, my emotional nature. That is what is on deck for this new moon for you. Honoring that and letting it inform your career goals and how you push forward in public recognition, legacy, things like that. Okay, Leo rising. This new moon is in your 12th house. This is very abstract. It's a spiritual area. It's related to dreams. It's related to escapism, can be related to retreat, and sometimes disillusionment, like, I don't really know where I'm going. But the new moon in Cancer is like, you need to nurture that side of yourself. Allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to space out and zone out. Jupiter is in your 9th house of belief, higher education, travel. And so that is where you've been doing a lot of push, whether you're going back to school, whether you've got a new worldview that you've never had before, like your whole path is changing. That's a Jupiter in the 9th house thing. Your path in life, what you believe you are here for, Jupiter in the 9th house. Also, religious beliefs, that's a Jupiter in the 9th house topic as well. A lot of energy, possibly triggering energy there. The new moon in Cancer is like, listen to your spirit. It may not come from books or self-help podcasts or whatever. It may not come from traveling. It may not come from higher education. We need to pay attention and nurture the spiritual side of ourselves during this moon cycle. So meditation, getting creative, being in nature, it's a very 12th house thing. Write down your dreams. That is what's going on for you. And balancing the allowance for messages from wherever, the universe. I mean, in the 12th house, like if you wanted to look at the Christian concept of the Holy Spirit, it's a very 12th house topic. It's not the Bible. The Bible is the 9th house, right? So, and I'm doing this for imagery, not because I'm like, it's just for imagery. And it's the same thing. It'd be like, Buddha in meditation versus any thing he's had written down or any religious text around Buddhism. So that's the difference between the 12th and the 9th house. It's spiritual messages versus man's interpretation versus belief versus like religion. Okay. And so these two things, they seem like they go together, but oftentimes they don't, because if you are taking, let's just say, a Bible verse by the words, and you are not letting your spirit guide you, you may not be taking it the right way. You have to check in with your intuition. You have to check in with your spirit. Let that guide you instead of your beliefs that right? I mean, there's room for both, but you have to balance the two. That is what this square is. It's how are your intuitive messages coming through, and maybe changing your beliefs, maybe becoming more clear on what you truly believe about the world and your place in it. So yeah, intentions for this is to open up to whatever messages might be coming to you. So yeah, pay attention to your dreams. Virgo rising. New moon is in your 11th house of goals, large groups of people, the future, society is an 11th house topic. So are you nurturing your goals for yourself? That is one of the big questions with this new moon. Are you feeling into that? Are you allowing your feelings to inform that? Now, Jupiter's in your 8th house. The 8th house is how you share yourself with others. It's power or powerlessness, empowerment or disempowerment. It can be teamwork, business partnerships. That is an 8th house topic, and you have been working towards that. So it's also investments. It's also debts. It's also contending with deep desires that we may be pushing way down. But the 8th house is a dark house. It's got a lot of shadow work in it. So the new moon in Cancer is like, hey, why don't we think about the future instead of being bogged down in the swamp for a minute? We need to allow ourselves to think about what we want for our future, who we want to be, the types of people we want around us. Maybe quit being so closed off. Jupiter in the 8th house can put the walls up, can make us not want to share ourselves very much. It can also make you like, if you've got Jupiter in your 8th right now, you may be racking up debts or making several investments. There's lots of different possibilities here. The new moon in the 11th is like, now think about the future while you're doing this. Okay. It's very important. You can't just no holds barred, sign contracts with people and attach yourself to people or situations or money situations without thinking about your future and allowing yourself to feel into that. So a good intention or a good practice around this new moon for Virgo risings would be, why don't we get a game plan together for the rest of the year? We'll see what that's like. And let Jupiter in your 8th house, you're pushing towards perhaps growing your own finances, perhaps growing your partnerships, whether it be romantic or business. But you have to factor in your goals and how you feel, how you want the future to feel. That's a good way to put it. And that also goes for groups of people. So if you've got friend groups, maybe you're thinking things have not been, I've been disempowered in this certain group of people and I want to be empowered here. That could be another way the 11th and 8th house can factor in for you. All right, Libra risings. This new moon is in your 10th house of career and public reputation. So you're feeling into what it's like to put yourself out there, to push for a greater sense of public recognition, accolades. I want to feel into the outer world part of myself, Libra risings. Jupiter in Aries is in your 7th house, putting a lot of heightened energy in your relationship sector, be it friendships, romantic partnerships, be it even clientele, if that's something you have. And there's been almost a super expansion there, pushing forward. I want to meet a lot of people. I want to have more friendships in my life. Maybe that truth is coming up for you. Maybe you feel like you need people. Well, that's going to take you feeling into how you put yourself out in the world. For instance, if you realize you've put way more emphasis on a romantic relationship and have lost some of your friendships, maybe it's time to feel into how you are being seen in the world. That's a 10th house topic. How you feel about your career, how you feel about your life direction. New moon in Cancer is like, if you want this 7th house people, if you want relationships, you also have to work pretty hard to be seen truthfully as you are, as your soul wants to show itself. Cancer is your emotional nature. And so you need security there. So check out with people, how is it that you see me? That might be a good practice for this new moon. What is it that you think my passions are? What is it that you know about me? Asking that is going to reveal a lot about how you are putting yourself out in the world. And Jupiter in Aries is like, if we have to have relationships, if we want relationships in our life, we have to also think about our eventual goals. That's the 10th house, how we want to be. Do we want to be respected? That's another thing. Do you feel respected by these relationships that you're building or by the relationships that are currently in your life? A square can be tense, so it would not surprise me that you would get an answer that might bother you during this time, but you're supposed to be figuring it out, checking in with yourself. Am I on the right path? And am I maybe putting too much emphasis on relationships and not enough on my own goals, or vice versa? And also let you feel into how your public reputation, how you want to be seen in the world, 10th house, legacy, career goals. Feel into that and let that inform your truth in relationships. Are there people who you may not be prone to associating with because they're bringing you down? This is a question. Yeah. So, write out some goals for this new moon. That might be a good idea. And yeah, talk to people, see what they think. Not that I think you should take on what people say about you, but let it inform you. Let it inform you. And always check back in with your gut. Cancer is your gut. All right, Scorpio rising. This new moon is in your 9th house of truth, belief, your worldview, your philosophy. Have you been nurturing that part of yourself, or have you been staying busy? Because Jupiter in Aries is in your 6th house of ritual, routine, work, coworkers. There's been a lot of, let's just say, forward movement. Pressure is not normally a thing with Jupiter. That's more of a Saturn thing, but maybe pressure is a Jupiter thing when you consider expansion a certain type of pressure, the pressure to expand. So that's what's been going on in your 6th house. Work, health, your body, that's a 6th house topic. Now, you have to check in with your philosophies for this new moon. How do I feel about what I believe about my daily life? That is what you're supposed to be moving towards, is your philosophies in general. The 9th house is how you view reality. It's what reality is to you. So have you been nurturing that? Have you been checking in with your emotions on maybe things happening in the world, or even contemplating what you believe about life, about your own emotions, and about your place in the world? Jupiter in the 6th house has had a lot of busyness attached to it for you. Maybe so much so that you haven't been able to quite tune into your inner world in a while. And I think that's what the new moon in Cancer is about for you. It could also be about travel, how you feel about traveling, but a trip is a trip. So whatever kind of trip you go on, whether it's psychedelic or actual, air travel, boat travel, that could be a theme for this new moon cycle for you. But also, I think it's tuning into your own philosophies about life and nurturing your truth, and letting your emotions inform your truth. And yes, that may take some self-care, and it may take you out of that busyness for a minute, but you do, to a certain extent, have to let go during this new moon of the push forward, because that will have burnout. Especially in regards to your body, this is an important time. So this is a good time to start a new regimen, a new type of, like, if you're exercise, meditation, yoga, whatever that is. It not only helps you work out some of this physical energy that you've got going on in your 6th house, but it also helps you tune into your emotions. I know that whenever I am, like, let's just say doing yoga or on a treadmill or something, or hiking even, I really get in my head, and I'm able to suss things out and check in with my feelings. That would be a good practice for you on this new moon. But yeah, it's going to require a certain amount of letting go of the busyness and letting your own self-care inform your everyday life. All right, Sagittarius rising. This new moon is in your 8th house. Okay, so how do you share yourself? How are you empowered? How are you disempowered? What are the team or partnerships in your life? What do they look like? Are you nurturing them? Are you nurturing your own empowerment, your own soul's desires? And are you doing shadow work? That is the eighth house. You know, are you looking deep? Are you turning over the rocks to see what's going on in your psyche? So nurturing that inner part of yourself is a big deal for Sagittarius risings. And it's also the eighth house rules contracts. So like I can imagine, I know at least one Sagittarius rising who's just gotten married. So you're nurturing that part of yourself. Now, Jupiter in your fifth house is making you, I shouldn't say making because the planets don't make you do anything, but it's reflecting a push towards a new sense of creativity, towards joy, towards good fortune, romance. That's a fifth house topic. So is children and inner child. So learning to play. You've been playing a lot. The new moon in Cancer is like a little, let's get serious. What are your investments? What are you investing in? How are you sharing your resources? Are you doing what you need to do to build your own finances and values? So it's not necessarily don't play. It's just how do you balance the seriousness of teamwork and of investing and of resources and empowerment with joy and fun and inner child. And those two things may be going through a little bit of a tense moment with, okay, I guess I have to take care of the serious business and put the play on the back burner a little bit. But more importantly, it's take time to do both if you can. I think that's going to be important. Okay. Capricorn rising, this new moon is in your seventh house of relationships. Jupiter in Aries is in your fourth house of home and family. So there's been a lot of push forward in the home and family sector. Maybe you're moving, building a house. Maybe you're just redoing some things. Maybe you have a family member who has moved in with you. Anything to do with home, property you own, family. That's where there's been a lot of energy. The new moon in Cancer is like, how do you feel about your relationships? You know, it's great to have all this push towards security and home and family, but are you nourishing the relationships, the friendships, the romantic partnerships in your life? And are you being nurtured by them? So this is a new intention for the relationships in your life, and maybe to come out of your hole a little bit because you've been in this sort of proverbial hole in the fourth house, which has you really focused on self, focused on home, focused on family. That's all well and good, but there is this need to tend to relationships with the new moon in Cancer, and also make sure your relationships are providing nourishment for you, because there could be burnout, especially if you're doing something like renovating a home and you're putting all that work in there and you're fighting with your partner because you're retiling the bathroom. And it's like, let's take a pause from the work we're doing on our home and on our family, and maybe a pause from being so self-focused and so protective to nourishing this partnership, this relationship. Okay, Aquarius rising. The new moon is in your sixth house of routine, health, work, everyday life. And Jupiter is in your third house of communication, decision-making, local community. So these two things being a little abstract, Jupiter could be bringing a lot of clarity, a lot of mental activity to your life, maybe having to be very busy. The new moon in the sixth house is like, are you taking time out to care for your body? And I realize I've said that a few times, but you know, that's really the case with a Cancer new moon, is we're supposed to be having some self-care moments in there, especially if you've been busy, moving around a lot, you know, driving from your job to work to your hobby. That is a very Jupiter third house manifestation. It's also, like I said, short trips, siblings, there could be that going on. This new moon in Cancer is like, okay, it's time to take a little time every day for your emotions, for yourself. How do you feel about what's going on every day? Is it jiving with who you are, with what you want for your life? And also, are you taking care of your body? This is a good time to take an Epsom salt bath, especially all Aquarius risings. It's time to come back to your soul for a minute. Take a pause. It could be quite emotional. I mean, there's a reactive nature with this Jupiter square the new moon, especially with Mars and Aries. And so, if there is a health flare up, this is a clear indication that it's time to pause for a minute. But yeah, check in. Are you nourishing your rituals? Are your rituals nourishing to you? Do you have those every day? And I don't mean to make yourself feel guilty, like, oh, I didn't get up and meditate. No, it's like, what do you do every day? And how can you intend for that to nourish you? Like maybe you drink coffee, maybe it's time to switch to matcha. Okay. Like little bitty tweaks. And of course, these are all just examples. So whatever happens for you, it's time to nourish those rituals and that spiritual nature. It's more like a realistic spiritual nature, like what you can do in everyday reality to spiritually connect. So moving your body, moving your emotion, taking care of yourself. And then Jupiter in Aries in the third house, learning, communicating, teaching, moving around. There is going to be a time for that. But this moment it's time to pause on that just a minute and take care of yourself. Okay. Pisces risings. This new moon is in your fifth house of joy, children, inner child, romance. And that's what you're really interested in making room for. Jupiter in Aries is in your second house of finances, self-worth. And there's been a big push forward there over the last month or two, actually probably 3 months. Maybe a greater sense of self-worth. Maybe you're just really concerned with growing your financial situation. Maybe you're focusing on getting a raise or getting more money or doing your budget, whatever the case may be. New moon in the fifth house says, what good is that if you can't enjoy it? So it's time to have a little fun for this moon cycle. And it could bring up inner child things, especially around self-worth and security with this new moon. But it's insanely creative new moon for Pisces risings. It's a time to tap into that intuition, that still small voice in your head that tells you, hey, here's a great idea. The fifth house is creativity. And also loving on your inner child and saying, you know what, maybe if we weren't provided for like we should have been growing up, we know how to provide for ourselves. So yeah, leaning on the people closest to you, moving that emotion creatively and making sure you're making time for fun, making sure you're enjoying that push towards more self-worth or more finances, higher finances, economic vitality, whatever you want to call it. As long as you're having fun and you're being creative and attending and taking care of the inner child in you, then that should be okay. But there is a little tense push-pull here. All right, that does it for the rising signs. So now let's move on to what's going on every day. Woo, the next couple of weeks. So yeah, I talked about how it was interesting. The new moon in Cancer has this symbolism with a Supreme Court decision. And I actually wrote a transit report for the Organization for Professional Astrology's magazine, Career Astrologer. And I looked ahead, and one of the things that struck me was July 1st through 4th. And so this new moon square Jupiter is quite emotionally reactive for everyone. I didn't really go through that in the rising signs, but if you find yourself acting on emotion, that could be a way that this comes out. And I think that we all will be acting on our emotion or letting our emotion inform the way we act right now. Aries is action. Cancer is feeling. Let me switch this to Aries rising so we can follow the planets around easier. 0 Aries, there we go. Okay. So where we're at now, it's June 27th, Monday, about 5:45 p.m. The moon's in Gemini. Gemini actually rules commuting, so does Mercury, which is there. And I find it interesting that during this moon, Mercury, Gemini, we had the Amtrak collision that just happened a couple of hours ago. And I was taking a look at it. I was like, wow. And the sun is almost square Jupiter. Jupiter also rules travel. So that's coming out very in a very real way right now. But as we move along, we see tomorrow is the new moon, and then also Neptune stationing retrograde. This is a outer planet, so I think its themes are pretty big. They have a wide breadth of its path. So, you may or may not feel anything around this Neptune retrograde, but it's good to know that it's going on. Your dreams may be crazy. So when we get to Wednesday, the moon is a little further away from the sun. So we're just past the new moon. It happens at night. And then one of the biggest things is Mars approaching a square with Pluto. And Wednesday gets a little closer. Also, you know, I almost left out the fact that Venus has been sextile Jupiter during the new moon. That's really nice. I think Venus being a benefic, Jupiter being a benefic, we are supported during the new moon, especially our mental processes. We're really thinking and we're really communicating and maybe even being social. That's helpful. But the Mars square Pluto, eek, that's going to be a little difficult. Okay, so Mars is willpower, Pluto is power. So Mars is our personal individual willpower. Pluto in Capricorn is like the patriarchy. Okay. And since Pluto's been in Capricorn, it has been working on all the structures that support us. That's a very Capricorn thing. Also our economy, Capricorn rules banks, it rules governments. Pluto is the tower card. Pluto comes in to say, all right, let's burn it all down so we can build it back up again. It will have a lot of people vying for power. And I think that is also very present in our current situation here in the US with the Supreme Court, with the politics being the way they are. It is a grasp for power. So at the same time, Pluto is here and Mars is squaring it. We have the moon, even this is Wednesday night, is approaching its square point to Mars, and it will make a T square. And this is a very tense moment. So the new moon, you know, could be kind of tense, but it's really the days after that I find are going to be the most intense. So here I've got Thursday, June 30th with Mars square to Pluto. And you can even see it. It's already really on here. Pluto opposite the moon squaring Mars, Pluto squaring Mars. It's called a T square. So I would expect this to be quite a moment. Although the moon is brief, it moves fast and it can be moody. I would expect people to be snappy around this time. I would just expect people to be emotional and for things to be a little frustrating around Thursday at 12:45 p.m. It is it's like a pulling a rubber band. I mean, that's what this is like. And it is, how do we push forward for our individual goals, for our survival, our security, Cancer and Aries, against the power of the structures, the rules that bind us, really. So as we get closer to this, things start ramping up. You may see more protests. That could very well be the case. And I would just keep an eye on it. I mean, that's just the best way to say it. I'm looking at other things. Just to make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't think so. So that really covers Thursday. I mean, I think that probably from now through Thursday, things just build in intensity until this kind of is the popping moment, midday, Thursday, June 30th. So at night, Thursday, June 30th, probably around bedtime, the moon moves into Leo. That doesn't really solve anything because at the same time Mars has hit the 27th degree and exactly square Pluto. Okay, so we're still dealing with this. Maybe fight for power, empowering ourselves, wanting to do things our way versus the way the rules say they have to be done. So the moon moving into Leo, Leo is typically a fun, loving, creative sign. And when the moon's in Leo, we like to have fun, we like to let loose. I just don't know how possible it will be around this moment because of Mars squaring Pluto. So that's nighttime. So we'll wake up Friday with the moon in Leo. And yeah, as we wake up, the moon's trining Jupiter. Okay, that is pretty positive, but it also lends itself to super big emotions. And they're both fire signs. Leo is a fixed fire sign. Aries is a cardinal fire sign. So when these two support each other, they're talking, they're working together. We have this, okay, we can do it, nothing's going to stop us situation on our hands. And the fact that at the same time Mars is square Pluto, lends itself to the possibility of big things happening in the world and in our lives. On one hand, the moon trine Jupiter around midday Friday is really nice. On the other hand, we're still probably pretty triggered with Mars squaring Pluto. Okay, let's see here. What else is going on? I will say, as the moon moves even further, it will, on that day, it'll sextile Venus. So that's some help. But Venus is women's issues. And I don't, if you identify as that, I'm definitely not genderizing things, but if you identify as a woman, that is a Venusian topic. It's the female, and everyone's got female and masculine energy inside of us. So this is the receptive energy, the things we love. This is what we find comfortable, the people we find beautiful. That's a Venus topic. And Venus in Gemini is very buzzy, very busy. We may change our minds a lot. We may be like, oh, I just want to be social. So this, Friday could be quite a social day, but I would still have my spidey senses up with Mars square Pluto. It's a little unnerving to have such upheaval already without Mars even being totally square Pluto yet. And this is Monday, and I'm looking at Friday like, here we go. This is some big stuff, some explosive stuff, if I do say so. Okay, so let's go into let's go into Saturday, July 2nd. The moon squares Uranus, and that is also another indication of upheaval. Uranus is revolution, rebellion. Obviously, that is happening in our reality right now, especially in the US. But this allows us a moment to change our situation. So if we're finding out that we're not able to, let's just say, enjoy ourselves, moon and Leo, Uranus and Taurus is like, well, what are your values? They have to inform each other. We may need to change some things. On a collective scale, I would expect Saturday to even be revolutionary in nature. And just after it squares Uranus, it's going to oppose on Saturday Saturn. And this brings up a topic that will begin to get more and more present as we go through the summer, and that is the Uranus Saturn square. Let me explain this. This little pause. We're still looking at Saturday, July 2nd, but I think this is a good time to bring it up because it's just going to get build. So in 2021, Saturn squared Uranus 3 times. Uranus being revolution, upheaval, rebellion, innovation, trying to break free from old values, maybe the way we even interface with the earth. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. Taurus also rules finances, economy. So Uranus has been making things unstable there, which instability is not inherently bad. Instability is what, presents change. So that is good. But square to Saturn, which is the rules, the taskmaster, Saturn is really holding it down in Aquarius. Like, no, these are the rules for society. This is how we have to do things. It's currently retrograde, meaning it's undergoing a little bit of a restructuring, a rethinking. And the moon on Saturday, July 2nd hits both, and it will activate this square again. This square will happen one more time this year, and it gets closer and closer all summer. It won't be exact by degree. It's only like 1 degree away. So I'm calling that its 4th and final square. So every time the moon goes through a fixed sign, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, or Aquarius, it's going to activate this. We have a very big fixed grand cross coming up in August. So this also brings up the nodes, and you can see here a fixed grand cross. So even though the moon is out of Cancer and Mars has moved on, by Saturday, Mars is not square Pluto anymore. We're on the back end of it. Mars is at 28, Pluto's at 27. So we are just past the Mars square Pluto, which was all about empowering ourselves. We now have the fixed signs activated. And so this activates that, do we break or do we bend? Do we cause a revolution, or do we just stay in the confines of Saturn? That is July 2nd. Okay. And then that brings me to, let's see, the same day, July 2nd, Mercury squaring Neptune. Okay, so we got a couple of squares on our hands on Saturday. Mercury square Neptune is kind of difficult. It's like a brief Mercury retrograde, but it's just one day, right? So actually this is active, I would say, all day Saturday. Let's see what time it gets to the 25th degree. Yeah, but 6:45 a.m. So Saturday is a Mercury square Neptune day. This can lead to lack of clarity. Neptune is now retrograde. This could lead to a reimagining of something, or having to bring yourself back down to reality, or it may be hard to be clear on reality during this day. So if you are planning to send any emails or do any important communication, obviously it's not that you shouldn't do it. You should just have this in the back of your mind. Double check things on Saturday, make sure things are all set up right, because Mercury square Neptune, it can be a brief Mercury retrograde type situation. Okay, so we go into Sunday, July 3rd, and this is when, this is really what I wanted to talk to you about. Moon moves into Virgo. I believe that's pretty helpful for us during this time. And that is because we're going to need the earth signs to be present while this is going on. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Mars reaching the 29th degree of Aries. This happens at 3:45 p.m. on July 3rd. Here we go. Why is that important? The 29th degree is called the anaretic degree, the degree of crisis. Aries is a cardinal fire sign. Action happens no matter what with Aries. Okay. So when we get the degree of crisis in Aries, we get maybe extra serving of crisis sometimes. And crisis, you know, there's a song by the band Plants and Animals, and it goes somewhere between a crisis and a pretty good time. That's what this brings to mind, because we got Jupiter in Aries, and Jupiter is expansion, and we've got Venus and Gemini hanging out there with Mercury. And so there are good things in our reality, but the crisis means you have to take action on this Aries spot no matter what. The last time Mars was at the anaretic degree of Aries was January 6th, the day of the insurrection. And as it moved into Taurus, that's when the dude, the QAnon shaman with the horns on his head, came into our consciousness. And that's when Mars moved into Taurus, the bull. Okay, so this was never more, astrology was never more insanely real than that moment for me. So the fact that this is happening July 3rd and 4th rings some bells. Okay, I think it's very, very important to have your spidey senses up on this day, to be aware of what's going on this day. Mars is still not very far away from a square to Pluto at the time it's at the anaretic degree, and it could have some explosive situations. Okay, these are people pushing, and I mean everyone pushes for their own desires in Aries. Their own willpower takes precedence over anything. And Mars is the god of war. And when you get to this crisis degree, it's like something's got to give. And it's there from 3:45 p.m. July 3rd all the way through, we're going into July 4th. And yeah, it's overnight in the central US around 1 a.m. that it moves into Taurus. So I would expect July 4th to be a very big day on a global scale. At the same time, Mercury is at the anaretic degree of Gemini. So this, again, degree of crisis, what do we believe? What is true? What is this information coming into us? These two are sextile, meaning at least our minds are connected to our willpower, to our ego, and we're able to process the data very quickly. I'm not sure it was like that the last time Mars was at the anaretic degree of Aries, But you could say that this also finishes out a cycle, because the last time Mars was here was January 6th, 2021. And we are now, a year and a half later, experiencing the same kind of rhyming moment. Now, Mercury being at the 29th degree of Gemini is like, you better get very clear on your communication. You better be very sure of what you're saying and what you're listening to. Write down, take notes. I mean, it's very important to tune into this sextile. I think it's helpful, but Mars is a malefic planet, so we may have people popping off at the mouth. People may actually, I'm hoping people speak the truth on this day. I don't know where the truth's going to come from, but I think that we're going to have some very powerful words spoken on this day. And I would pay attention to the messages you receive and to the communication in your own life. At the time, the moon's in Virgo again, and I think that's very nice. The only problem is that it will square, it will square Mercury later on the day, July 4th. And so our need for, I would say Virgo is the need for healing, for perfection, for discernment. And so as it comes into the square, Mercury leaves and moves into Cancer. Okay, so Tuesday overnight, Mars moves into Taurus, Mercury moves into Cancer. We got the moon in Virgo. It doesn't actually square Mercury probably until Libra, now that I look at it. But it will be opposing Neptune. So yeah, the night of July 5th, July 4th going into July 5th may seem kind of crazy. Yeah, because moon opposite Neptune can always feel like eerie, like you're tuning into something spiritual or maybe even some existential crisis. So pay attention to your dreams. All right, now we get July 5th. And as we wake up, Mars is now in Taurus, Mercury is now in Cancer. Very different energy. Mars is now moving forward steadily, not with so much gusto, but it does move forward steadily. It's like this, I don't want to put a bad label on Mars, but it's more like Michael Myers, how he just walks very slowly and always gets to his victim. That's Mars and Taurus, okay? It just very slowly advances, and it advances on things like survival, comfort, values. That's what Mars's directives are in Taurus. Mercury in Cancer, it's really emotional. It's a lot less detached and airy like it was in Gemini, where it rules. And it's much more connected to how do I feel about this rather than how I think. So we're going to be thinking in regards to our emotions. Okay. And then around, looks like around dinner time, Tuesday the 5th, the moon moves into Libra. And then this will be the moon square Mercury moment. So this actually indicates we may have some delicate things we need to share with maybe loved ones or in a relationship. We may need to communicate our feelings to them. So this is dinner time, July 5th. That can be a little bit of a sensitive time, moon square Mercury. Venus is coming into, and we're going to go ahead and go into July 6th here. Venus is coming into a sextile with Chiron. So this is healing. And actually, as we get to midday, Wednesday, July 6th, the moon opposes Chiron. No, actually, it's dinner time, but it's leading up to it all day. The moon opposes Chiron and makes a trine with Venus, Venus making a sextile with Chiron. So Venus in Gemini is like, hey, let's get real clear on these wounds. Why are you so sensitive here? And the moon in Libra is like, yeah, we need to know why you're so sensitive so that we can balance things out. Venus is facilitating this conversation, okay? And I think it's a really nice healing moment. It could be a little sensitive. It could have to do with your desires versus how you fit into relationships and how you communicate both of those things with Venus and Gemini. Let's see here. Oh, and at the same time, the sun is coming into a square with Chiron. Wow. All right. Wednesday, July 6th, shaping up to be a very wounded healer day. If you don't know the story of Chiron, Chiron was a centaur. He had all of the healing knowledge in the universe. He could heal anybody, and he taught healing to people. He was a teacher of healing. And he was immortal. He was a demigod. And one day, I think Hercules accidentally shot him with an arrow. And you know what? Chiron could not heal himself. And that was a problem. He did not like that. So instead of just living forever with this wound, Chiron decided to give his immortality away to Prometheus, who gave humans fire. So it's, in my eyes, it's a lot like dying to your wound or becoming aware of your wound and saying, you know, I'm not going to deal with it anymore. Like, I see it. I see it for what it is. I'm going to feel it. And that's how I'm going to heal. That is very, very big symbolism on July 6th. So it's not just Sun square Chiron, Venus sextile Chiron. It's also the first quarter square of the moon. This is the first adjustment from the new moon period that we're having. This is always a time it's like we have to take action on something. It looks like it's going to be on our relationships. And if I had to guess, you know, with so much going on in the world, we may have problems in relationships due to our beliefs, especially with Jupiter in Aries right now. And this can be a little sensitive. You know, how do we balance the relationships in our lives, but still honor our own truth, our own security, our own beliefs? And I think that's what this is going to represent. But you have a right to be here as you are. That's Chiron and Aries. You have a right to be authentically yourself. You have a right to do things the way you want to do them and be the person you want to be. And the moon in Libra may challenge you. The sun in Cancer may challenge you to do just that, maybe around family, maybe around relationships in your life. So if you don't want to get into it with anyone, that's a day to be aware of this. But it's also a day that might smart a little bit. We do have the one helper, Venus and Gemini, facilitating communication. And so that is, I would say, very, very good. It is our way out of the painful part of this transit and into the healing portion of this transit, Wednesday, July 6th. All right. So July 7th, moon in late Libra. What does that mean? Well, it means the moon is going to trine Saturn, which has us tune into how we're structuring things, maybe our goals for our life and how we work together with humanity, with the rest of the world. But it will also square Pluto later in the day. And that's something to note because moon square Pluto will bring back up that Mars square Pluto. It's always going to bring back up these themes. And this time, instead of our individual nature, against the structures being handed down to us, it is, how do we feel in our relationships? How do we balance things? What is right? What is fair? That Libra is the sign of justice. So we may be tuning into that as well on Thursday, July 7th. Let's see here. At the same time, the sun is still sextiling Chiron. It looks like that's going to be a pretty long transit. It's exact probably Friday the 8th. But it's pretty long. So we're going to go with that. Just keep that in mind. That goes through straight through Friday. So speaking of Friday, overnight, the moon moves into Scorpio. And what does that mean? Well, it means the moon will oppose Mars. Always a reactive time, always an emotionally reactive time. The moon does not like to be in Scorpio. Okay. Scorpio is the deep, dark swamp, and the moon has to look at all the stuff in the deep, dark swamp whenever it's in Scorpio. It has to contend with power, disempowerment, what is right, what is fair, but not in the Libra sense, like who is oppressing me? That's a Scorpio topic. How do I get out of that oppression? How do I share myself with people? Mars and Taurus, Mars is pushing forward in kind of like this, I want to say selfish, but not in a bad way, but like self-concerned nature. You know, what is comfortable for me? And we have to contend with what is comfortable for me versus what I have to give to others versus how others may try to disempower me. So this is a very, very reactive time. Be aware. Okay, I'm looking at what else is happening. The exact opposition of Mars happens early in the morning, but still moon in Scorpio is kind of a weird time. We do have one thing that's great, that July 8th, the moon trines Mercury. So our hearts and our minds are pretty intuitive during this time, both water signs. They're looking deep into our desires, into our souls, into our root chakra nature. That is what's going on Friday. Let's see here. Tuning into what's going on. Looking at Friday. So by nighttime, the moon, it's really not making any other significant aspects until the next day. So after the initial moon opposite Mars, Friday, July 8th in the morning, it's more, and the trine to Mercury, which has us thinking about these things, thinking about mother issues, Mercury and Cancer. We're actually putting our minds on the nurturing nourishment energy of the mother around that time. But moving into the nighttime, it just looks really contemplative. And then Saturday morning, we wake up to the moon trine the sun and opposite Uranus. This is, I'm going to break free. I'm ready to let go of fear. I'm ready to head towards what I want to bring into my life. The Uranus and the North Node in Taurus are both saying, what are your new values and how can we get those? How can we get to this greater sense of self-worth, maybe to a different way of doing things economically speaking? How do we go after what is comfortable for us? Has that changed? That's what this moon transit's going to bring up. Mars is still there in Taurus, kind of adding some angst, but the moon trine the sun, which happens every month. I mean, it trines the sun twice, just like it squares the sun twice, is again, this tuning into our emotional nature, tuning into issues of mother and nourishment and nurturing and survival. This is a very survival type of transit, Saturday, July 9th. And then the moon hitting the South Node is, how do we let go of fear and disempowerment? Maybe we're holding on to things that feel comforting, but they are not. They are not actually comforting us. It's just a blanket. It's just Linus's blanket. Okay, so around this time, we may be able to let go of something. And I think that's really nice. We are past the Sun square Chiron. So yeah, it's just basically a Thursday, Friday transit. And this happens right in the beginning of the morning on Saturday, July 9th. So as we get towards lunchtime, that's when the moon crosses the nodes, which are the eclipse points. So I'm going to say everything I just said is going to be active pretty much all day Saturday. It will then trine Neptune, which helps us connect to our intuition that much more, and sextile Pluto, that helps us connect to our empowerment. So Saturday is pretty full, and honestly, none of that looks really uncomfortable, except for the fact that the moon in Scorpio with the South Node has us letting go of something. But I think we are very supported in it. So that's a good thing. Oh, did I miss Mercury sextile Jupiter? Happened so fast. Friday, Mercury. Oh, it squares Jupiter. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not taking back anything I said about Friday. That's still the rub there. We've got Mercury square Jupiter, the sun square Chiron, moon in Scorpio. So as you can see, as we leave this new moon in Cancer right now, we're just heading into deeper waters, literally. And maybe even more angst, although it does become a lot more steady pressure with Mars in Taurus. Okay, so yeah, watch your dreams on Saturday, July 9th, because those will probably be very active. Moon in Sagittarius, that's Sunday, July 10th. The moon in Sagittarius will trine Jupiter again around midday, it looks like, or just early afternoon. And that's really nice. This has us really tuning into truth, what we believe, optimism. Things do feel like the pressure is released a little bit on Sunday, July 10th. Things aren't, I mean, there's not really any squares that are really hard. Yeah, I think Sunday, July 10th looks a lot more optimistic and fun. I'll say that. Um, Maybe even very contemplative, getting very clear on our truth. And it's a better day. It's a better day. And I'm here to give you the good days, honestly. Monday, July 11th, Moon in Sagittarius. What's it doing? It's trining Chiron. That's very healing. The sun is leaving its sextile with Uranus. So it's actually coming into a trine with the South Node and Uranus, which, I mean, I think that just carries over this, the eclipse patterns that I was just talking about, how the South Node in Scorpio is about letting go of fear. But the moon trine Chiron, from Sagittarius to Chiron and Aries, is really healing, really like lets us open our minds and see the truth of whatever is hurting, is bugging us, whatever we feel is a wound. The moon in Sagittarius really sheds light on that. So I love that. And then, yeah, it's actually a nice day with moon opposite Venus. So this is Monday, July 11th, moon opposing Venus. I like it. It's going to make a sextile with Saturn and a trine with Saturn. This is the ability to put our minds to work, especially in regards to what our personal truth is. So Monday, July 11th looks really supportive. I think Sunday and Monday, July 10th and 11th are actually days where we can get stuff done. Days where things become clearer. They feel a little more optimistic, perhaps. But also maybe a little zealous. I mean, the moon in Sagittarius literally rules religious zealots, right? So that, you could have that. And it does square Neptune around bedtime, July 11th. So there is a moment Monday night where it's like, is this real life? Do you really believe what's coming out of your mouth right now? I would watch that, but it's very brief. Let's see here. Yeah, as we go into Tuesday, July 12th, Venus, so the moon moves into Capricorn, first of all, and that is the sign of the full moon. The full moon will be July 13th, but as we get closer to that full moon, Venus gets closer to a trine with Saturn. And so that's why I say the July 10th, 11th, and 12th looking good. As we get into the full moon, it looks good. I don't hate it. Honestly, I don't. The full moon will be with Pluto, and I will have a lot more to say about that when it's time for the full moon. It looks quite empowering. So let me just sum this up for you guys. New moon in Cancer sparks some things, and then it just builds from there. Once we get into, let's just say, the week of July, after July 6th, and we're going to go actually after Thursday, July 7th, into Friday, July 8th. That can be a little iffy because of the moon in Scorpio, but Sunday and Monday, July 10th and 11th, and 12th and 13th, those are not looking bad at all. Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at other things going on. And yeah, I really feel like leading up to the full moon, things become like, oh, that's why we've had all this trouble. Oh, that's why there was all that friction going on. That's why I had to take action on this thing. Things become real clear July 13th when we have this full moon. July 13th, July 14th, what time is it? Yeah, here in the central US, it'll be like 10:45 p.m. Wednesday, July 13th. Now that doesn't mean this full moon's going to be easy. It's going to be pretty intense, but empowering at the same time. So I want to plug some good vibes for that period of time. It's just going to be the next week or two that are going to be real squirrely. That's the best way I can describe it. Maybe a little triggering, maybe a little emotional. The overwhelming theme is to take time to tune in to your own soul's needs, to your own family's needs. Keep it, circle the wagons, basically. And I don't mean to keep people out. What I mean is learn what you need to be happy, to be comfortable, to be safe. And if you have that, try to focus on that. I'm not saying not to do other things, but it's going to be insanely important to take time to focus on your needs and self-care in the middle of all of this hustle and bustle, really high energies, really maybe raging tempers, maybe disempowering situations or moments where we have to demand power and do what we need to do for ourselves. In the midst of all of that, remind yourself that you're taken care of. And if you're not taken care of, find the people that you can lean on during this time. It's very, very important. And I think that's why the first quarter square of the moon is in Libra, which is who's in your life and can you count on them? That's very important. You know, get very clear on that and take time to take an Epsom salt bath and do meditation and write. These stories, you know, who knows if the internet's going to be around forever. It's important to write these stories down. We need to tell these stories. Tell your stories, especially when the moon moves into Sagittarius. Yeah, otherwise, maybe I'll be able to share my article on OPA's, from OPA's magazine. And I hope you guys have a really illuminating new moon where you get really clear on what you need and how you're going to push forward with that in mind, with your own security, your own emotional needs in mind, your own self-care in mind. Don't burn out during this new moon. Make sure you're taking care of you and your loved ones, and remembering to remain grateful for what you do have. That's not easy when you're in the middle of an emotional storm, or, you know, maybe you don't have everything you need. But I do think it's powerful. Even in the hardest of circumstances, it gets you out of a lane into a different lane, I think. So remembering what you have and taking care, nourishing, and remembering to love yourself, mother yourself during this new moon in Cancer. Don't let people provoke you to war when what we really want is love. I'm not saying that love is going to fix everything. I mean, it should, it will, if it were allowed to operate that way, but that's not reality, is it? I'm saying that people have done great innovative things when survival's been on the line. In fact, I wrote a notepad, quote here. Let's see if I can open it. Where'd it go? Come on now. Where is it? I'll have to post it later. My notepad won't open. Open recent. No, notepad. It won't let me do it. Oh, well. It was something about, let me just give this story. I went to Mesa Verde one time and learned about the cliff dwellings there. And I had to go up a ladder, and it was crazy because it was very scary on the side of a cliff to explore these dwellings. But these people risked their lives to build something that seems nearly impossible for the survival of their family, for their survival of their selves, against the sun, the heat, the fires, the arrows that might have come from other tribes. And it just amazes me what people can do when it comes down to getting your needs met. And it doesn't always have to be destructive. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for building. I'm hoping for innovation. That's Uranus, in order to take care of ourselves. So, you know, just like the cliff dwellers. And maybe I'll find that quote I was looking for. All right, guys, if you want to book with me, ecstaticastrology.com.